All right, so tell me about this Senate bill that could affect small businesses this year.
Okay, so it is called the Helping Small Businesses Thrive Act, and it was put forward by a senator from New Hampshire, a Democratic senator from New Hampshire, and a Republican senator from Louisiana, actually, Bill Cassidy and Jean Shaheen, which is always a fun name to say. And so Jean Shaheen has been she's owned her own small businesses in the past, and so she has definitely been a big supporter of small businesses and has been on committees in the past in the Senate in order to put forward laws and bills that would help small businesses to thrive like this one is. And so this one is intended to give small businesses the options to buy options. Anyway, and
It's playing the stock market.
It's in a way of hedging. It's kind of an insurance policy on commodity prices. And so what we have seen in the last several years, since COVID, since these natural disasters, and just over the last few years, inflation has been through the roof, and small businesses suffer more than and just like any one personally deals with higher costs. Our wages don't keep up, and a lot of times the revenues for small businesses can't keep up. And so to pass through that cost, I know I personally have been complaining about the price of food at a restaurant. Feels like it's doubled in just the last couple of years. Well, it's because their costs have also probably doubled in the last few years. So this act is meant to help small businesses in the event of inflation and the expectation of costs being higher tomorrow, that they can hedge against that inflation. And so the idea is that for certain commodities, things like gasoline and diesel, lumber, electricity, natural gas, other utilities, that's where the act would start, is to allow small businesses to buy an option, which would be, say, 5 cents per gallon of gas. And what that would say is, okay, in 6 months from now, I expect to buy 1,000 gallons of gas in 6 months, and I don't want to pay more than $3.50 a gallon. And so I'll pay an extra five. I'll pay 5 cents per gallon, so 5 cents times 1,000 gallons. That would be $50. So I'm going to pay $50 to guarantee that I won't pay more than $3.50 in 6 months per gallon of gas 6 months from now. Now, maybe gas will be $4 a gallon. Here we go. We just inaugurated a new president, and so hopefully gas is not going to go up and up and up. But that's what this is meant to do, is to hedge against the risk that the gas prices could continue to rise. And so if 6 months from now gas prices are $5 a gallon, then I have guaranteed that I will only pay $3.50 per gallon.
It's like an insurance policy.
It is right? Just like an insurance policy. So it is considered an option. It's a futures contract. It's not working in stock markets or the futures market exactly. It is more an insurance policy, an option to buy gasoline at a particular price point in the future. So what will happen is, in 6 months from now, when gas prices are $5 per gallon, well, you would spend $5 per gallon, 5,000 gallons, that'd be $5,000, and then this option would pay your small business the difference.
Okay.
So you have guaranteed.
You get reimbursed to that amount
for the difference
if you
between
bought the insurance or.
That's right. Yes. So the difference between the actual price that you paid and the price that you bought the option at.
This is a federal thing there?
It is.
Okay.
It is. So this would be through the Small Business Administration, the federal, the United States Small Business Administration. So they would be responsible for this program, and also responsible for communicating it to small businesses to let them know that it's available to them. And so they start with just a few commodities those more common ones that would apply to most businesses: gasoline and diesel, electricity, utilities, those sort of things, lumber. That might apply to multiple small businesses, and then based on how that works and how that helps small businesses, they might tweak, remove some of those, add other commodities. You
Will you be able to pick? Will they be able to pick?
I
where
the way that I read the act is that they'd have a short list of options that you could buy and price points that you could buy them at.
They're calling it options.
They are calling it options. Okay. That's right. Yes, okay. Yes. So the way that I understand the act is that the bill at this point is that they would have a short list of options that are available to you and the price points that you can purchase them, and all putting in all the terms as far as what the price will be in the future and at what point in the future, and putting all those limitations on it. How much is it going to cost me today in order to guarantee that price for the future? And so that's the way the act would work, and have a short list. You select those parameters, and then based on market feedback and feedback from small businesses, the Small Business Administration could review and add commodities to the list or take some away. Make adjustments to the program itself.
Did you say the name that they're?
Well, so it is. I'm going to have to read it because it is quite a lot of letters. They're calling it Helping Small Businesses Thrive. And so what Thrive stands for is to hedge risk and insure against volatile expenses.
Okay.
So Helping Small Businesses Thrive Act. And so this has been presented in the Senate as of yesterday. And so, of course, it'll have to go out for a vote, and I would, based on Schoolhouse Rock, knowing that only a bill sitting on Capitol Hill, so it'll have to go through the process of becoming an actual act and coming into practice, and so.
Well, that's interesting, Tiffany. Is there anything else this week with regards to businesses and that might be of interest?
Well, it is a very it's been an interesting week for sure. I know President Trump, he was on a Zoom call or a virtual call with the World Economic Forum. You may have heard about this. It's they were meeting in Davos, Switzerland. Switzerland, correct?
I believe.
Yeah. Okay.
They usually meet
Sweden.
over there.
Yeah. Anyway, I think Davos,
like the Swiss Alps
Switzerland. I'm sure it's beautiful.
Yeah.
And so the World Economic Forum was meeting this week. President Trump obviously was going. He was 3 days in office. He had a lot of things on his plate, so he did not go in person, but he did make a call in, and he did highly. What shall we say? Use some strong.
He praised them highly.
Well, I would say it was
Scolded?
more. He used some strong language to encourage that these world leaders invest in the United States. That we bring manufacturing and business here in the United States. That they build, factories or that they build business here in the United States, and trying to encourage that. The world to come to us as well, and of course, U.S. businesses to be able to thrive. And so I know he had some very strong words. He's mentioned tariffs and all of that. It is a policy that it has its place, and so we'll see how that all plays out, if that will encourage some businesses to come pour their time and money and energy in the United States, and what effect that has on our American-based businesses, as well as jobs here and the economy. There's a lot of things in flux for sure. So he signed. I think he was trying to break a record as far as the the number of executive actions he's signed in the week, and he probably has. There have been many. I'm sure there are several in there in the coming days that we'll talk about how they will affect small businesses or potentially affect small businesses and the level of the competition that they bring here, or maybe even just funding for local businesses. I think there's a lot of opportunity in the future, and of course there's the idea that we have been through a few difficult years. I think most folks would say since about 2020. We have been in flux, I would think, is maybe an understatement.
There you go.
And so I think there's a lot of optimism about what the future can hold, and I think this act here is more a hedge against the potential risk of the future. And so there is, even with the optimism, there's a chance to hedge our bets and
yeah. So hopefully it's a positive landscape looking forward for small businesses, because it sure has been bumpy, to say the least. The percentage of businesses that survive is probably at an all-time low. I mean, it's just been harder than probably just about ever to survive as a small business, in the past few years. Looking at the statistics and testimonial stories, it's been pretty bleak. Almost makes you not want to start a business, which is sad because it used to be that, business ownership was, it wasn't a guarantee, but if you did well and you studied and you tried and you worked hard and you had a market fit and a product, for product or service, and you were good to your people and you were good to your customers or clients, then you would at least make a living. You may not, be a multimillionaire, but you would at least make a living. But here, the past few years, as we know, even businesses that were good to their customers, good to their people, doing what would seem to be right, it just, things just fall apart. The price of commodities, like we were talking about, fuel, the shipping crisis, the lockdowns, it was just one thing after another. It seems like, and the natural disasters, and these type of facilities burning over here, and these things freezing over here. We just got out of our own world record freeze here in Louisiana, but the great freeze of 2025 already. Snowfall, 5.5 inches they recorded,
which is the second highest recorded, right? Something about
1890 was the only
well
one that
over
was
100 years ago.
Sure.
Yes, even higher.
Yeah, it was about 130 years ago was the only one that was recorded higher. It's pretty crazy.
I read New Orleans, some places got nearly 10 inches. There were places in Florida that got upwards of 8 and 10 inches. It has been a very interesting situation.
Frosty and palm trees.
Who'd have figured? That's true. Well, this Jean Shaheen, senator from New Hampshire, I know she's looking for ways to make things better for small businesses. Another one I thought about.
What a good name for the bill!
Really
they're passing up a good one, like an opportunity. The Jean Shaheen.
She probably has her name on. She probably has her name on several bills at this point. She seems to be quite the proponent for small businesses. Man. I did remember another that I heard of today. Another of the executive orders was return to work in the office for federal workers. Have you heard this one? Apparently, since COVID, there were a number of federal positions that went remote work at the time, and which made sense for social distancing and trying to slow the spread and all of that during the pandemic. And many of those positions didn't return to work. And what that does is, I know it's ideal for families. It makes it, in a lot of ways, more flexible working conditions to be able to work from home, reduces costs of going out, spending money on gasoline or public transportation,
so good for the climate,
well, and there's a lot of positives of remote work, but the negatives are these businesses, these federal office buildings, and yeah, federal offices have been half full or less in the last 4 or 5 years at this point, and that also affects the local economy. There are businesses in Washington D.C. You mentioned small businesses shutting down because of lockdowns, and there were many that just never reopened. They shuttered. They lost their business. Their revenue went to zero during the lockdowns, and they just never reopened. And there's a lot of small businesses in, say, Washington, D.C., or in the surrounding areas of these federal buildings that have suffered because of remote work. It has affected the local economies, which I guess is not something you think about. But these employees are not going into the office building, which means they're not eating lunch at the local restaurants, which means they're not paying for public transportation, which is apparently suffering in the DC area as far as the funds for the local transportation services. And so it has affected the economy. So one of the executive actions was to eliminate remote work positions. I'm sure there'll be some kickback as far as that goes. I'm sure there'll be plenty on many of the actions, but that one in particular because of a lot of folks moved out of the DC area or moved across the country because they could still work. I met someone sometime last year who their position during COVID went remote and never went back to in person, and so they lived in a camper. They drove an RV across country. They homeschooled their children, and they would they just had a hot spot and situation, and they were able to work remotely, and so they were on the road. They sold their house and everything, and so there's a lot of employees who may not return to work. Will be looking for other positions at this point because they've already uprooted their lives across the country potentially. So it is going to be interesting how it's implemented, but in that way is a potential to revitalize those local businesses, and so that I guess would be the perk. And then these buildings that are sitting half empty, finding other uses for them if people aren't returning to work. And do they need to stay empty? Can you use those repurpose those buildings for something else? And so I think it opens up a lot of conversation for sure. And going forward, but
a lot of those buildings, the office buildings, they built them in such a way they can't be repurposed for, you would think apartments or something like that, but depending upon how they were actually put together.
Yeah, and I'm sure from fire.
There's codes.
The protocols and all, sure.
Right, I'm no expert.
The standards,
But I have read.
No, that makes sense.
A lot of them can't be. And so that poses a big problem with the commercial real estate market right now because vacancy rates are high.
Yes.
Very high.
Yes, that's fair.
Whether it's fair, I don't know.
No, that's fair to say.
Fair to say. So.
Yeah. So lots of pros and cons in the future, which I guess is there's been a lot of cons lately that you mentioned about the rates of failure. There have been a lot of negatives, and so I think there's at least some positive aspects. At least it's opening up conversations about this is not work, things that aren't working, and maybe the executive order or a bill is not gonna correct the situation, but at least it opens up the conversation about it's not working the way we're doing it, so we need change. And I think that's a lot of what the elections were last year. Love him or hate him, he definitely came from a perspective. President Trump definitely came from a platform of change, bringing change from the last 4 years, and so that's what and the majority of Americans voted for, and so I think we're already seeing that in this first week. And so we'll see how many of the changes are for the better and how many are for the worse. And and then we'll just do our best to hedge our bets. And
we're gonna keep. I see what you did there. And we're gonna keep on. We're gonna keep on putting out this content every week.
yes,
and
yes.
improving upon it and doing our task for our business. And why don't you let us know what someone could do if they wanted to, perhaps we're interested in your services, your financial services with Your Consulting LLC. Maybe let them know what we do and how to give us the information to help them.
Okay, absolutely. www.yourconsultingllc.com